Welcome to the Feed Central Hay Matters podcast, your go-to source for all things hay-related in Australia. I'm your host, Jon Paul Driver. In today's episode, we're joined by Stephen Page. Stephen's the Grower Relations Manager for Feed Central. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, JP. Good to be back.
Tell me, as you're out and about talking to growers, tell me what's going on with the weather. We're almost to planting season. There's some things coming up to watch out for. Let's start with the weather.
Yeah, well, over that Easter period, which we've just come through, there have been some rain events around. Majority of the areas have received some rain, but it has been variable in that too. Like in central New South Wales, it was from nothing up to about 50 mil. Down to the Riverina, it's around that Deniliquin area, they got around that 8 mil, but it got even less to the east and more to the west of that area, got up to 25 mil. The Wimmera Mallee country, where there's a lot of hay produced, as you know, it's anywhere from 15 to 25 mil. The southern coast of Victoria, central southern coast or greater southern coast, is around that 30 to 50 mil of rain down there. And some of them have already got some clovers planted. They will be starting to plant now. And then you've got that Murray region along the border, the Victorian New South Wales region, along west of Albury there. They got around that 25 mil up through there. And then we go across to South Australia into that Barossa Clare Valley area, and they didn't get any rain over there at all. So, and they are another lot that are requiring rain. They really need a couple inches of rain very soon to sort of kick off their period. They will also be looking at starting to plant some dry.
Is it planting? Is it sowing? Is it seeding? All of those things I recognize as the act of putting a seed in the ground, but are there regional differences in Australia? Yes,
definitely. Yes. I'm a Queenslander. I say planting or sowing more. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's a terminology I use, yes. But as I think you'd have the same sort of issue over there, different terminology in different regions. So, yeah.
But they're all mutually intelligible.
That's right, and majority of people understand when you're saying planting to sowing, they know it's the same thing. So
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But it is the season. We're early on the planting season, right?
Yeah, so a bit of the crops that have, they've already started putting out the grazing crops. So oats, there's some oats planted up to about 3 weeks ago in that eastern central New South Wales area where they will just graze it. It won't be made into hay or anything like that at this stage. But so the grazing crops have already been planted. Majority of them where they could get them in have been planted. If they, doing that. Most of central New South Wales down into bits of Victoria, that around that region along the Murray, it's still a little bit early yet for the oats. They don't want it to plant too early because you have the issue, unless they're going to graze. So some will plant now on this rain event. They will get the crop up, they will graze it, and then they'll get to a certain stage and they'll say, right, okay, we're going to take the sheep off it there now, and we're going to let it go through, and we're going to make hay out of it. So they'll do that in good regions when we have a really good season. Even some of the dryland country will be done like that. In the irrigators, anywhere from Forbes in that region south, there will be people that will do that in that irrigated country. Yeah, they can get away with that, but majority of them won't really be planting their crops for just pure hay production until after about that last week after ANZAC Day. So we're still a few weeks away from that yet, yeah. So end of April, 25th, ANZAC Day is the 25th of April.
I've recently learned about this. We still celebrate Armistice Day, although we would call it Veterans Day. It's been renamed in the U.S.
Right.
Still November 11th for us. But no doubt an important hallmark for the planting season. What are producers thinking about right now? What are the considerations around planting decisions?
Well, for the hay production side of things, look at the paddock, look at the bit of the history of the paddock. Hopefully they know what their soil tests are up with now, whether they need to be putting fertiliser down, how much. Look at any issues that they may have with weed issues. And then also basically diversifying their risks. So if they have got an opportunity there where one paddock may be a little bit more prone to frost, make the opportunities where you take the stubble off and have the opportunity to either go for grain if we have a good season and they want to go through to grain, or then if they have an issue where they're not going to have the moisture or that crop gets frosted, those crops then make extremely good hay. So have opportunity there where you can flick backwards and forwards between the two. It is a great opportunity to diversify those risks. You need to be looking at your weed side of things, your soil health, and select what crop do you want to grow. Do you want your oats, do barley or wheat? Look at your beardless varieties because they have different markets, and also look at the shed space that they've got. It's no use, hay, if you're going to be making hay, have shed space and have it that you can put it away, because the market is not there every day. We feed cattle every day, but the market is not there every day. It's not like a grain crop where you can drop it into one of the depots and you get paid for it. So they're just issues you need to be thinking about, and look at what opportunities you've got in that.
You mentioned about weed control. A quick note on herbicides, right? Now, I'm not certainly not an Australian herbicide expert. I am licensed in my state, so I have some concept that there are herbicides that you can use on grain crops that you can't use on forage crops. And there's requirements for tracking those. This is just a note to say, hey, remember that the herbicides that you use matter when you're making your marketing plans. Is that fair?
Yes, that's correct. And also, if you are looking at export or domestic market, that can also change those chemicals that you're applying. So that's a big consideration to be looking at and talking to your agronomist about. I don't want to really open up that can of worms on here today, otherwise we'll be talking for a long time on what the issues are there. But yes, keep your records, know the rates that you're applying, know the dates that you're applying, and you'll find when you're marketing your hay with Feed Central, every lot that we inspect, we expect a CVD to be a commodity vendor declaration to be filled out with every lot. And our customers, our buyers, require that to be with that lot. So we do not market any hay through our system without a commodity vendor declaration.
Perfect. A good management practice.
Yes. The majority of growers I've been speaking to recently, the actual amount going into hay this year is very similar. Certain regions are planting a little bit more. There is some competition out there in the hay market, and mainly in the Wimmera Mallee country. There's a bit of competition with the lupins and lentils. So that's pulling away from the amount of vetch that will be grown in those regions. On the other side is the canola price is back a little bit, though I think it has lifted a little bit this week. Talking to growers, they are moving away from canola a little bit, back into their cereal hay because of the price and marketing opportunities. And a lot of the growers I'm talking to, the hay that they made last year, it's already gone out of their sheds or it's committed in the sheds. So a lot of them are looking at filling those sheds again this coming season. So I don't think there's going to be it's not a huge quantity moving towards hay or away from hay. So I think we're just going to be in for a normal production season with those issues going on.
What's the tone of export versus domestic?
Well, the export market's very strong in South Australia, as you know. And those fellas, will be competing again strongly for the hay incoming in this new season. So yes, they are there. The professional fellas that deliver into those areas are, extremely good at what they do and have big sheds and supply big quantities. But talking to one of the growers over there yesterday that you know quite well, because we stayed at their place while we were there. They, their sheds are just about empty. And that region in South Australia, I said earlier on, they didn't get any rain. There's no rain in that region in this last lot that came through Easter. So they are really looking for a couple inches of rain. But talking to Corbin, they're basically going to start putting their grain out in that couple of weeks' time and just waiting for the rain. So they'll plant dry and then just let the rain come in. And they've actually had some rain earlier on, which has allowed them to get good control of their weeds. So they would have liked a little bit earlier, a little bit more now, to do a spray to get rid of any weed issues. But no, they'll plant dry and then wait. The thing about planting dry is the hay has to be dry. The ground has to be dry enough to plant and not too wet to germinate. So it's one of those balancing acts.
I'm familiar with this concept. We call it dusting in, where you can put the seed into the dust, and I mean dry dirt, and then wait for the rains to come. But to your point, it has to be dusty dry to do that. Otherwise, that seed germinates, gets just enough water to germinate, and then you're in trouble.
Yeah, well, if you don't get a follow-up rain then, So it's you've got that situation. You can be too wet to dry sow and too dry to wet sow. Mm-hmm. So you've got to get that balance right, yes.
Absolutely. That's a very different story than what I experienced, because I was there in August, and there was still lots of 2022 hay sitting in the sheds when I was there in August of 23, and now you're telling me that the 23 crop is pretty well gone.
Yes, but there is still some of that damaged hay still out there in sheds too. There are some situations where people are trying to sort of market that as last season's hay, but it's not. It's actually 2 years back. And you can tell through your feed tests and also visual inspection, of course, that it's not last season's. There was only a very small portion of last season's hay that was actually damaged, and that was more down in that southern Victorian area, that greater southern area of Victoria. They had a little bit of rain during that south of Ballarat, around that Ballarat down through that area. They had a little bit of damage to their hay. But as we said previously in the other podcasts, it's been an extremely good season for hay production in majority of the areas. Yeah.
Was there any commentary around straw separate from hay?
No, I haven't really discussed the straw. The straw fellas, the people I was talking to or have been talking to, are a little bit concerned with the feedlots up in this Darling Downs region, like what they did last year. They went out and were very aggressive with buying local straw and taking that, and really, I don't know, the fellas down south missed out on their normal opportunity that they would do to supply straw up onto the Darling Downs here. They're being a little bit cautious at this stage, but we're a long way off from making straw, and it's an opportunity type thing that that we can go with sort of later on. It's not a big consideration at this time. One
of my favorite things to ask about is equipment. What are you hearing about contractors and equipment supplies and maybe equipment pricing?
Just one fellow I was talking to yesterday was telling me that the crone balers have gone up substantially in the last 12 months, and he's very concerned with that. He was talking about $150,000 worth increase in price for a crone 8-string baler. His rates haven't risen in the last 12 to 18 months. And the amount of bales he's been putting through those balers in the last 3 years has been difficult also for him. So, and at the moment, he was telling me there's 80 balers on the market at the moment, so with very low sort of bale numbers on them. So there's a lot of people obviously going away from being contractors or keeping balers in their sheds. So he feels that, and I know a number of contractors have gone out of making hay. So I think really, if you are looking at using a contractor at the end of the season to make your hay, really start looking now or talking to your existing contractor and making sure that you've got them good preparation, get everything right, give yourself the most number of opportunities within the season to go. We're very fortunate, in Australia, in that if you've got your paddocks ready, you can go either way. So if we have a wet, and they are talking about a wet season, so there's productivity coming along, and have that opportunity to be able to flick backwards and forwards if the need arises. And so either look to be making hay, but also your grain area, have that set up so that you can potentially go back and make hay if you don't have the wet, if you don't have the moisture, if there's a late frost or whatever. The growers I come across that are in that situation can do that are the most successful that I see around. And also spread your risk with, I love vetch, a bit of vetch in the country. It's a good rotation for your hay areas. I'm confident we're now coming into another good season. We just need to get that good curing period and get it in the sheds again and have those sheds ready. Make sure that they're set up, they're clean, everything's ready to put that hay into.
Sounds like the voice of wisdom and experience.
Thanks, Steve.
Stephen, thank you very much for your thoughts today. Again, I've been joined by Stephen Page. He's the Grower Services Manager for Feed Central. Big thanks to our guest today for sharing valuable insights. This podcast is proudly presented by Feed Central. Stay tuned for upcoming episodes.